since I ran out of time and I talked about what's your identity function? You work in a factory making toys all day for $2.46 an hour. So naturally, there's a qualifier and a given and all that. This is not meant to lower the frequency, if you will, of somebody that loves to make toys, and because you love to make toys, that's your passion to go make toys all day long for $2.45 an hour. If that's what makes you happy and keeps you in a state of love and joy, and you love doing what you're doing, that's cool. That's the point. Because one of the things that I measured since actually childhood going forward was, and of course, my father instilled in me the importance of this, and that was following your passion. Okay? But when you realize that, right out of the gate, if you will, that if you want to go make money, right? Money, because money becomes more important than the living, then the perception of what people learn is that they live in fear of losing out of money because money is translated as energy. Well, if I don't keep collecting and making more money to put into a bank account that's holding my money, that represents energy that I'm using, which is my energy, okay, then I've got to make sure that I keep accumulating more of what I'm held captive to, or I'm going to lose what it is I'm aware of, which is myself, which is my security. And that becomes reverse programming. You're held captive to a vampire. Because all you got to do is look at see how it works. The entire financial system was so corrupted it was ridiculous. See, so there isn't any equity, there isn't any honor, there isn't any truth. So how can you trust a system like that? You can't. How many times they pulled the rug out from underneath humanity, basically making suckers out of everybody that believed in that banking system they set up, right? Particularly when you get into all the birth certificate stuff. Go look on the back of your social security card, and that number is a bank account. Put into your name, and that's why everything's all caps, which is the license and all the rest of that, which is a slavery system, which is why Trump put out that executive order. What is it, 13818? We're going to end human trafficking, which essentially meant you harm another human being because, remember I talked about child abuse leads to self-abuse? You have to end that cycle, okay? Which means the experiment's over. Okay, because somebody finally decided to say we're going to put a stop to this, right? Somebody who can make those kind of decisions decide to do them, right? Because I certainly collected all the data on what was going on here, and it didn't take long to put it all together. So I covered programming in a lot of my earlier videos because they were all put together as short little lessons because I realized that when you have millions of people that are running a program, which is basically tunnel vision, which means they're not running off of a lot of information that they can comprehend in a short period of time, means their attention span to hold a lot of information at once is not very much, right? Remember the old days when they take a test of reading comprehension? In other words, read one chapter of a book and then total recall. Can you recall essentially what the message was trying to communicate? That doesn't mean you memorize every single word in the text. But were you getting the message from that? Are you able to sort of process the information and understand what the picture is trying to tell you? Yeah, I got the communication, right? So now we're into the efficiency of communication. So as at one time I was a voc ed teacher, which basically means all the different skill sets going into, if you will, automotive engineering, architectural design, all the voc ed stuff, right? Which means occupational stuff. Because what they do is they already have occupational codes that are all set up. And that's called pre-formatted. You know what pre-formatted is in information sciences, right? So in other words, these billets or jobs are all pre-formatted with job titles because we love to use labels, titles, and boxes that we put everything in. And that's how they compartmentalize your consciousness. Okay? They compartmentalize it because you put that compartmentalized program in place, then your state of consciousness is running that program. Okay? Because where are you getting the information in order to put that in memory to build that system in which your consciousness is running, using electrons to run it with? And then you're going to experience a magnetic moment of the light in which all that information is held that you're experiencing. Your consciousness. Okay? So in other words, it's no different than putting a DVD of how to build a car into your head. Then you run it, and then you build the car. Okay? It's no different than Google Play Store. That app is just sitting there, and if you uncover the hood and go in there and look at the programming language, right? It's just sitting there. It's not even being used. But it's being held in place by energy. So if somebody says, hey, there's a new program app called Telegram. Well, somebody wrote it, put it together because they know how to program the information, which means they know how to program consciousness, program matter. So then what you do is you go say, hey, I'm going to go run Telegram. Okay, go run it. You're going to run it with your consciousness. Now you're running what the programmer put into that program. So you're running somebody else's program. Okay? So that's what it is. So, we know how to run our own programs. Right? Yeah. And that's a measurement of both learning and how much light you're running on. How much love you have in your heart. So that's why you knew as I knew as a child, the biggest generator of electromagnetic energy is in your heart, because that's where the most powerful neurons are. Neurons, neurotransmitters that are connected to other neurotransmitters, right? So when you know that you're running on your heart, which is a powerful light wheel vortex, that's your shield. That's your protection. Okay? Because you're going to be under constant attack. Constant attack all the time. So you got to find a way to be able to maintain your own peace and harmony, baby. So that comes from knowledge. So for me, it's called pre-formatted knowledge, or if you will, I must have got briefed before I came in here, because when I was aware at about age 4 and I read my first newspaper, bang! As Patty one time said, all the information began to unpack. That's what it is. The information begins to unpack. But what I began to realize over time is that it was my future self unfolding the information as it was unfolding in order to do the things that I was doing, which was collecting data and experiencing this place.